Joining us on The Informer is the GM, the General Manager of Demos Property Services, their professional cleaning services, Penelope Demos. How are you, Penelope?
I'm well, George. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Thank you for joining us. Now, the story that we want to unravel and explain over the next few minutes is one about the level of mismanagement that you've watched around you at government level. Can you give us a sense of where it started to really make you shake your head and wonder what in heaven's name is going on, and especially at such a difficult time like this COVID pandemic?
Well, George, the shaking my head came early on in the piece, and all of us as Australians and Victorians have watched these systemic failures or perceived systemic failures initially. We're all trying to do the right thing, or 98% of us are. Why are things still going so terribly wrong? And it's such a great magnitude. What prompted me to really shake my head and reach out to you were no opinion pieces, very much factual, where we've had systems in place within our business. So, for example, our pandemic plan was issued to clients back in January. And that's been worked on and continued to be worked on. We were able to deploy everything safely.
Is that because you were watching what was happening in the other parts
Correct.
of the world, and the last thing you wanted to do was see it happen here?
Correct.
Wow, so you got ahead of this very early on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. January 28th was our first communication to our clients with our updated pandemic plan, which stated there was a mystery pneumonia that's in China, which is what it was at that time. So we have always been, risk mitigation is the one thing that we've always focused on. We have very high profile clients. We have a lot of staff working for us. We want to keep our staff safe.
Yep.
Our clients safe and their stakeholders, and our business viable, obviously, with using all the right tools.
Now, and when we talk about tools, we also talk about an array of chemicals that some people are telling us are capable of keeping the COVID virus free for 30 days. Now, when you started hearing some of that publicity, what did you make of that?
Oh, well, I'm one of these people that can't sit back on my laurels. So I call out behaviour like that. Yep. Due to frustration, because if one of my clients said, Pen, I want you to use this particular product that I saw in the media, or I received a brochure for that claims X amount. Rather than disputing it, what I'll do is, yes, I'll use it, but then I'm going to do a pathogen level test. And I'm going to do a pathogen level test after I've introduced a contaminant back into the space within an hour of that product being put down, or 2 days. So yes, residual sanitizers do stay on a surface, providing that surface isn't contaminated again. So providing I haven't walked back in and used my keyboard and I've blown my nose prior to doing that, and then germs have re-entered the system.
Which is why we're constantly being told to wash our hands.
Correct. Yeah. I actually I did a pathogen level test for a client after we did a decontamination, and out of curiosity, I said to him, would you like to see the level of pathogens on your hands? And he said, oh, I sanitize my hands 30 times a day. Well, what's been safe is about an 80 RLU. We aim for, and it's pathogen levels.
Yep.
We aim for about a 50. This man's reading was 3,300 RLU. Someone who claimed to, and the man would sanitize their hands 30 times a day. So when you hear claims such as your workplace will be safe for 30 days or up to 30 days, it's atrocious. It can actually lead to more horrific numbers than we're seeing now.
Now, you've had a number of instances that have left you truly angry, because you've had one of your staff members test positive, and you followed all the protocols that were handed down by government and so on. To pick up the story from there, what alerted you that this was going bizarre and that the bureaucracy was going mad?
So we did have a positive case, which was brought to our attention on the 24th of July. The person was last on site on the 17th of July. I called DHS, I contacted the client, we did contact tracing of all the staff that he'd been working with at the time. We had all the staff stood down and ensured that they were tested, 11 to 13 days post this individual developing symptoms. Did not hear back from DHS. We were very fortunate. So we've had social distancing in place from March. Masks were mandated on all our sites prior to the Vic government doing so. And what that showed to us was the effectiveness of these procedures, because all of his colleagues have come back with a negative result. We then did a decontamination test in all the areas, because we also track paths of travel within any premises, so we know who's accessed which area. So we've continued communicating with the client, and it's been closed out in the sense that we've been following all these procedures. On the 1st of August, I received a phone call from the individual to say I've received a release from DHS.
So a clearance from government.
Clearance from government. You don't need to be retested. You're free to return to work. And he actually said to them, look, my employer has asked for 2 negative results prior to me being able to re-enter a work site. They were not supportive of that. So I issued him a letter to state that, I'm sorry, but you can't come back to work until you've returned these 2 negative results. So the man went ahead and got retested on Saturday. On Tuesday afternoon this week, so the 4th of August, I received a call from a DHHS contact tracer to alert me of this case.
How many weeks after? How many weeks after the original?
3 weeks post his symptoms.
Wow, 3 weeks. So the contact tracer has found you finally 3 weeks after the event.
Correct.
Okay.
So and I did make it very clear to him, he was only the messenger, but I did feel the need to express my frustration, anger, and very frankly, it's another demonstration of systemic failure, which is putting all of us at risk. He agreed to it, so I told him all the things we'd done and the fact that we'd contact traced and which cluster this individual had been allocated to, because his wife works in an aged care home. So all of that was put in place. He apologised for wasting. He asked me if we'd done decontamination cleaning of those areas. I told him we'd done decontamination cleaning and pathogen level testing post. Apologised for wasting my time, and we left it at that. I then received another phone call 15 minutes later asking if I minded if I could please help him tick the box that contact tracing had been completed.
That's extraordinary.
And that's where I really shook my head, George. He wanted all the names of the people that this individual had worked with. I said, what would happen if I didn't give you that information? No, I asked him first, if he would be contacting them. He said, no, because it's outside the 2-week window of opportunity to contact them. So damage has been done, essentially. I said, in that case, I'm not giving you their details. If it's purely a ticking the box exercise, I'm not providing you with that information. And he said, but you're legally obliged to. And I said, are you legally obliged to contact an employer within that window of opportunity to ensure that we're not spreading the virus? He said, yes, we are. I said, so I'll give you 2 scenarios. Number 1, we didn't have the systems that we do in place, and there was a cluster that broke out at the top end of the CBD. Who would be responsible for that cluster? He said, DHS.
Yes.
I said, right. I said, so I'll give you another scenario. I said, I don't give you this information and I see you in court. I said, because I've already relayed our last conversation back to the client and you stating that it had been closed out and apologised for wasting my time. Who would win that case? He said, you would. I said, I'd really like you to repeat that. And I was just a little frustrated and sarcastic. He said again, you definitely would.
Well, what you've given us is a clear example of just how the bureaucracy doesn't know what's going on, and A doesn't know what B's doing, and B can't tell you what C's up to. That's extraordinary. We're months into a pandemic. We're now into our stage 4 lockdown, and we're still hearing not only these anomalies, but these missteps at almost every interview we do, and it's extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, it got better, George.
It got better.
On the same night, it did get better, or worse, depending on how
you see things.
You want to view it.
Yep.
On the same night, the said individual, our staff member, returned another positive result. So he has a positive result dated the 4th of August, and he has a DHS clearance on the 1st of August. So had we not been
So what you're saying, had you followed the advice to the letter, you would have had this employee who tested a negative once before.
Positive.
Now you would have had them on site working, contaminating again because you've just been alerted that he's positive again. Wow.
Well, no, he never returned a negative result. He was never retested.
He never returned a negative result.
No,
so he was always positive.
No, he was always positive. The man was issued with a clearance without retesting.
How can you give someone a clearance without retesting? That's absurd.
How can we say that a lockdown, however long that lockdown is going to fix this problem for us? All it's doing is crippling people first, George, because yes, it's crippling businesses and we can see it. But now I heard on the news this morning about a man who suicided due to this lockdown because he knew that he couldn't feed his family and he couldn't meet his obligations. We're talking about something that's been going for 5 months. And some of us are more fortunate than others.
Yes.
You know, and our business has been impacted. You know, we're fortunate that we can still keep all of our staff employed in some capacity. But of course, these individuals are impacted, and they're low-income earners. They're not someone that earns $500,000 a year and goes, well, if I don't get paid for 6 months,
no, they're living from paycheck to paycheck.
Correct. Yep. And a lot of them are young people, young international students who are, you know, in their early 20s and here on their own. You know, I've got children that age, and I can't help but look at them and say, well, I can't help you because our system's failing us. And it's failing us grossly and on an ongoing basis. You know, we haven't learned from the quarantine bungles. We're just continuing to make more catastrophic errors.